Hey, good evening. My name is Dr. Young. I teach over at the elementary school and was going to be working with you guys this year with your marching band. My specialty is I'm a professional French horn player. I play in two orchestras, subbed in a bunch of others, played in professional bands, have marched professionally in the military bands. And I wanted to give you guys some basic stuff that we want to cover in camp. Matter of fact, I plan right now to do 6 sessions. The first one is on basic breathing, which is what we're going to start with today. Some intermediate breathing, advanced breathing, work on the natural embouchure for woodwind and brass players, but mostly for brass players. Teach you how to do sirens on your woodwind instruments and your brass wind instruments. Those are super important and something that doesn't always get taught as in depth in the schools, in high schools, as it does in the major conservatories and big schools of music out in the state and by professionals. And then finally, how to find the resistance of your horn so you can play the perfect note. And once you learn how to blow to the resistance of your horn and play that perfect note, then it's just a matter of expanding that up and down the range until every one of your notes is absolutely perfect. All right, so that's my plan to go over. And I wanted to start first off with with basic breathing. And look, this is pretty basic. I'm not going to lie to you, but some folks haven't gotten this yet. In my experience, I teach all sorts of high school students. I have an all-state French horn student from a different county who comes and studies with me privately, and he was a really good horn player, but never quite made it into all-state. This thing really changed his life. This is one of the things that really changed his life, and now he's an all-state horn player. So let me start off with breathing. So listen, we've been breathing our whole lives. So what's different about breathing to play an instrument? Well, what we want to do is we really want to stay as relaxed as possible, but also get as much air in as possible. And the best place for us to do that is the lower part of our lungs. All right, so our lungs range from up here at the very top of our collarbone, all the ways down to the bottom of our rib cage. We have these ribs that don't attach, they're called floating ribs. And the rib cage is there to protect your lungs. Your lungs don't stick out any further. They work as ribs in a bellows in order to open our lungs up and down. But of the most importance to us as wind players is these floating ribs right here at the very bottom. And the reason they're important is because they don't attach to our sternum. So the lungs and the ribs attached to our sternum will only let our lungs go up like this. But these floating ribs, when they open up, they can open up and open out. So you can get a lot more air in the lower part of your ribs than you can, lower part of your lungs as well, than the upper part of your lungs. Which is why your band director has been telling you don't raise your shoulders to breathe. It's not going to help. The amount of benefit that you get by extra air by actually manually lifting your shoulders is counterbalanced by the stress makes it harder for the air to come out. So what we want to do is we want to breathe as low as possible. And if you take a look, there'll be two spots that you'll see that open up. And you can check these with your hand. One is right below your belly button. Your hand should tilt down. You can just start to see that. Let me see. When I breathe, it doesn't just go out, it goes out and down. Now on my belly button, it just comes out. But the other spot is back here. If you're breathing in 3 dimensions instead of just out like this, if you're breathing all the ways down, then this part behind you also expands. So it works like this. And that right there is more air than I would need to power a French horn. For a really long time. I breathe normally 1 breath for every 2 breaths of the professionals around me. All right? And partially that is because good training has taught me to expand down very low. Of course, and then we blow from down low, but that's going to be a different story. All right? We'll talk to you about that a little more when we get to finding the horn's resistance. Okay, so when we breathe, we want to start down nice and low, utilizing the lungs around our floating ribs because that's where we can get the maximum expansion with the minimum amount of tension. All right? Now, after we do that, let's talk a little bit about why we want to do it low. Let me talk about that for a second. The reason we blow low is because when we play low, when we breathe deep, then we get a deep sound with our instrument. And deep sounds are really important. For example, if you've ever done lighthouses, you know how they have that foghorn, which is a really low pitch. When we breathe with our very lowest, deepest breaths, then the pitch of our instrument produces the fundamental or the lowest vibration in a much greater group, and that gives us huge projection because we have more of the lower stuff. Then our sound goes further with less effort. You go and hear professionals play, and even when they're playing quietly, you can hear it everywhere. And the reason that happens is because this deep breath and this dependence on the fundamental or the lowest frequency of the sound is what allows that sound to travel much greater distances, which is why foghorns use lower notes. Lower notes travel further with less effort. Okay? So that's what we want to try to do. When your band director says to play dark or to get a dark sound, what they're talking about is what the professionals do to get their sound to project with the least amount of effort. I don't have to play loud to be heard in a 2,000 seat auditorium. And I don't need a microphone for that either. Okay? I just play with what we call a good core or a solid low fundamental. And if we were there, I could show you using some equipment and stuff that I have how the harmonic series breaks up and which bar you want to have the very highest. But we're not there. I'll try to show you some other time. But this change of breathing low and playing from the deep side is going to really amazingly send the projection of the band out twice as far with substantially less effort on our part. So when we do decide to play loud, our sound can be absolutely deafening. Just a physical presence on the audience's face without playing any louder than we normally play. Plus we'll sound better and we'll play more in tune, which is also going to help the band's presence because then the frequencies are going to be working with each other instead of fighting with each other. So that's why we want to do this deep breath down very low. Now, before we get started with the very simple basic exercise, let me talk to you about how breathing starts. I know it sounds simple, but some folks, they just inhale. If you do that, you're going to have some problems, okay? So what we want to do is we start our breaths on the exhale. And that way, every bit of air that we get in is fresh air. And that way we can play longer without our body getting into a scared sense that, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I'm not getting enough oxygen. All those sort of things that add to stage fright and timid, poor playing. All right, so our breaths will start with the out. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in for 3 and out for 3. Breathe in for 4, out for 4, in for 5, out for 5, in for 6, out for 6. All right. Now your breath should be silent, right? And without the hand up there, you shouldn't hear, but it should also be full. We should go from all the ways from fully empty to fully to filled with air, and then we'll just let that out. Okay. All right. So start with 3. Going to blow all of our air out. Start with 3 in, 3 out. 4 in, 4 out, okay? Your sound should be silent, as soft as possible. And if you do have to hear that the air is rushing, you want a deep sound, and you can get that just by putting your hand in front of your mouth like this. All right, and hopefully you can hear that that's a much deeper sound. All right, let me get my metronome started. We always breathe in time. That is one of the biggest secrets that the professionals have. When they're playing, the reason their time is so locked on is beats before they play their first note, they've already started breathing in time. So when they play, it's right there, right exactly in time. We have got ourselves synced into the time just many beats before we actually play our first note. And that's why we can come in with a steady tempo and we don't come in with different tempos. Problems that are common amongst student bands in middle school, high school, and in college. All right, so let's get our metronome started. I can't talk and breathe well at the same time. So I'm going to try to give you examples. This will be 3, 4, 5. Figure that out. All right? So just remember, breathe deep and breathe silently. All right? And we're going to blow out first. So this will be blow out. Here's the metronome. Quarter note equals 60. Blow all the ways out. In. 4. 5. 6. All right, it really is that simple. You can stand to practice that very simple, easy breathing, remembering that I'm going from all the ways empty to all the ways full within the time. And it teaches me to be aware of how much air is coming in, how much air is coming out, to be able to regulate the airspeed to try to keep it even. But most importantly, we're focusing on keeping that air nice and low, so when we breathe deep, we can have a deep sound on our instrument, and that deep sound is going to be full of deep core, which is really going to project into the stands and into the concert hall. All right, I look forward to seeing some of you all tomorrow. Take care. Goodbye.